Can we save the air from global warming, climate change, sea erosion, waste pollution, and other environmental problems? Join LNTV for answers to these questions on the program Focus on the Environment with Rachel Colley.
Hello and welcome to the program Focus on the Environment. I am Rachel Colley. Today's program will look at the Paris Agreement. And also coming up is a one-on-one discussion with the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, Professor Wilson Tappe, who will be telling us about the impact Liberia has made since the signing of the Paris Agreement. Let's take a short break to be right back.
Can we save the air from global warming, climate change, sea erosion, waste pollution, and other environmental problems? Join LNTV for answers to these questions on the program Focus on the Environment with Rachel Colley.
Welcome back. It's a little over 5 years since 195 countries got together in Paris to sign up to the world's first universal action plan on climate change to reduce global warming. That agreement is called the Paris Agreement. Speaking at the World Leaders Forum organized by the Columbia University, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, during his State of the Planet address, explained the effect of environmental degradation.
President Bollinger, dear friends, I thank Columbia University for hosting this gathering, and I welcome those joining online around the world. We meet in this unusual way as we enter the last months of this most unusual year. We are facing a devastating pandemic, new heights of global heating, new lows of ecological degradation, and new setbacks in our work towards global goals for more equitable, inclusive, and sustainable development. To put it simply, the state of the planet is broken. Dear friends, humanity is waging war on nature. This is suicidal. Nature always strikes back, and it is already doing so with growing force and fury. Biodiversity is collapsing, 1 million species are at risk of extinction, ecosystems are disappearing before our eyes, deserts are spreading, wetlands are being lost, every year we lose 10 million hectares of forest, oceans are overfished and choking with plastic waste, the carbon dioxide they absorb is acidifying the seas, coral reefs are bleached and dying, air and water pollution are killing 9 million people annually, more than 6 times the current toll of the pandemic, and with people and livestock encroaching further into animal habitats and disrupting wild spaces, we could see more viruses and other disease-causing agents jump from animals to humans. Let's not forget that 75% of new and emerging human infectious diseases are zoonotic. Today, 2 new authoritative reports from the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Programme spell out how close we are to climate catastrophe. 2020 is on track to be one of the 3 warmest years on record globally, even with the cooling effect of this year's La Niña. The past decade was the hottest in human history. Ocean heat is at record levels. And this year, more than 80% of the world's oceans experience marine heat waves. In the Arctic, 2020 has seen exceptional warms, with temperatures more than 3 degrees Celsius above average and more than 5 degrees in northern Siberia. Arctic sea ice in October was the lowest on record, and now refreezing has been the slowest on record. Greenland ice has continued its long-term decline, losing an average of 278 gigatons a year. Permafrost is melting, and so releasing methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Apocalyptic fires and floods, cyclones and hurricanes are increasingly the new normal. The North Atlantic hurricane season has seen 30 storms, more than double the long-term average, and breaking the record for a full season. And Central America is still reeling from 2 back-to-back hurricanes, part of the most intense period for such storms in recent years. Last year, such disasters cost the world $150 billion. COVID-19 lockdowns have temporarily reduced the emissions and pollution. But carbon dioxide levels are still at record highs and rising. In 2019, carbon dioxide levels reached 148% of pre-industrial levels. In 2020, the upward trend has continued despite the pandemic. Methane soared even higher to 260%. And nitrous oxide, a powerful greenhouse gas, but also a gas that harms the ozone layer, has escalated by 123%. Meanwhile, climate policies have yet to rise to the challenge. Emissions are 62% higher now than when international climate negotiations began in 1990. Every tenth of a degree of warming matters. And today we are at 1.2 degrees of warming and already witnessing unprecedented climate extremes and volatility in every region and on every continent. We are headed for a thundering temperature rise of 3 to 5 degrees Celsius this century. And the science is crystal clear. To limit temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the world needs many things, but for instance, to decrease fossil fuel production by roughly 6% every year between now and 2030. Instead, we are going in the opposite direction. It is planned that we will have an annual increase of 2%. The fallout of the assault on our planet is impeding our efforts to eliminate poverty and imperiling food security, and is making our work for peace even more difficult as the disruptions drive instability, displacement and conflict. It's no coincidence that 70% of the most climate vulnerable countries are also among the most politically and economically fragile. And it's not happenstance that of the 15 countries most susceptible to climate risks, 8 host a United Nations peacekeeping or special political mission. As always, the impacts fall most heavily on the world's most vulnerable people. Those who have done the least to cause the problem are suffering the most. And even in the developed world, the marginalized are the first victims of disasters and the last to recover. Dear friends, let's be clear. Human activities are at the root of our descent towards chaos. But that means that human action can help solve it. Making peace with nature is the defining task of the 21st century. It must be the top priority for everyone, everywhere. In this context, the recovery from the pandemic is an opportunity. We can see rays of hope in the form of a vaccine, but there is no vaccine for the planet. Nature needs a bailout. In overcoming the pandemic, we can also avert climate cataclysm and restore our planet.
Mr. Guterres called on developed nations to do more in the fight against climate pollution to save the world. According to him, the effect of climate pollution is felt more by the underdeveloped nations. Here is Mr. Guterres again.
Dear friends, but we must remember there can be no separating climate action from the larger planetary picture. Everything is interlinked, the global commons and global well-being. That means we must act more broadly, more holistically, more across many fronts to secure the health of our planet on which all life depends. Nature feeds us, clothes us, quenches our thirst, generates our oxygen, shapes our culture and our faces, and forges our very identity. 2020 was supposed to have been a super year for nature, but the pandemic has had other plans for us. But now we must use 2021 to address our planetary emergency. Next year, countries will meet in Kunming to forge a post-2020 biodiversity framework to halt the extinction crisis and put the world on a pathway to living in harmony with nature. The world has not met any of the global biodiversity targets set for 2020. And so we need much more ambition and greater commitment to deliver on measurable targets and means of implementation, particularly finance and monitoring mechanism. And this means more and bigger, effectively managed conservation areas, so that our assault on species and ecosystems can be halted, biodiversity positive agriculture and fisheries, reducing our overexploitation and destruction of the natural world, phasing out negative subsidies, the subsidies that destroy healthy soils, pollute our waterways and lead us to fish our oceans empty, shift from unsustainable and nature-negative extractive resource mining and to broader sustainable consumption patterns. Because biodiversity is not just cute and charismatic wildlife, it is the living, breathing web of life. Also in 2021, countries will hold the Ocean Conference to protect and advance the health of the world's marine environments. Overfishing must stop. Chemical and solid waste pollution, plastics in particular, must be reduced drastically. Marine reserves must increase significantly, and coastal areas need greater protection. The blue economy offers remarkable potential. Already goods and services from the ocean generate $2.5 trillion each year and contribute over 31 million direct full-time jobs, at least until the pandemic struck. We need urgent action on a global scale to reap these benefits, but to protect the world's seas and oceans from the many pressures they face.
The UN Secretary General stressed the need for the inhabitants of the earth to do their part in protecting the climate. Mr. Antonio Guterres has emphasized the urgent need for world leaders to create more awareness on climate change and greenhouse emission.
We will launch the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, focused on preventing, halting and reversing the degradation of forests, land and other ecosystems worldwide. The decade is a rallying cry for all who want to tackle the twin crises of biodiversity loss and climate change with practical and hands-on action. The International Conference on Chemicals Management will establish a post-2020 framework on chemicals and waste. And according to the World Health Organization, sound chemicals management could prevent at least 1.6 million deaths per year. 2021 will also be critical in advancing the new urban agenda. The world's cities are fundamental front lines on sustainable development, vulnerable to disaster, yet vectors of innovation and dynamism. Let us not forget that more than 50% of humankind already lives in cities, and this number will reach almost 70% in 2050. Next year, in short, gives us a wealth of opportunities to stop the plunder and start the healing. And one of our best allies is nature itself. Drastically reducing deforestation and systematically restoring forests and other ecosystems is the single largest nature-based opportunity for climate mitigation. Indeed, nature-based solutions could provide 1/3 of the net reductions in greenhouse gas emissions required to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. And the World Economic Forum has estimated that business opportunities across nature could create 191 million jobs by 2030. Africa's Great Green Wall alone has created 335,000 jobs. Indigenous knowledge, distilled over millennia of close and direct contact with nature, can help to point the way. Indigenous peoples make up less than 6% of the world's population, yet are stewards of 80% of the world's biodiversity on land. Already, we know that nature managed by indigenous peoples is declining less rapidly than elsewhere.
This is how serious the state of our planet is changing on a daily basis. All we need to do is act now. Create more awareness to save our world from climate devastation. We are taking a short break, and when we come back, the Executive Director of the Environmental Protection Agency, Professor Wilson Tappe, will be our guest on the 101 discussion. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Today on our 101 discussion, we have as guest Prof. Wilson Tappe, who is the Executive Director for the Environmental Protection Agency of Liberia. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
So we'll be looking at the Paris Agreement and Liberia. What has Liberia done since the signing of the Paris Agreement?
First of all, thank you very much and welcome to the EPA. We are happy to have you here. We hope that this discussion will continue as we try to promote more awareness of the environment and its impact on economic development. A lot has been done in this area of the environment. I'm sure you know the background of the Paris Agreement. It was signed in 2015. Liberia was in Paris at the time. It was fully represented. And in 2018, the government of Liberia ratified that. So effectively, as of 2015, 2018, Liberia became a member of the Paris Agreement. What is the Paris Agreement? It's an agreement that was put in place to guide changes in weather pattern, climate change, how we are affected by climate change, and to reduce carbon emission, which is the same as carbon footprint. Two, to strengthen the resilience of communities against the effect of climate change, and to promote sustainable economic development. In other words, we have to protect the environment, but we also have to make sure that economic development takes place. And it's important to state that because people think that if you protect the environment, you cannot develop those development and climate change or climate change sensitive projects or environmental sensitive projects cannot go along, they can go together. It's just that when you are pursuing economic development, you take into effect the impact of climate change. And we believe that even if we do that, we can have more access to that. So those are the three things that the Paris Agreement is on. One, to lower emission of carbon, which is not good because it reduces the level of oxygen available to both mankind and the environment. Two, we want to strengthen resilience, and in the case of the impact of climate change, we look at Detroit, the resilience. The Paris Club, the presence of Paris Club, it was that situation that you had with the construction of that defense barrier. We have the project now, I'm sure in the next 6 months we have something also along the same way with West Point. It's going to be a $29-30 million agreement, facility that will construct the same thing. As we speak, we are speaking about silo, probably another year. Those are the things that the climate change, the Paris Agreement seeks to accomplish. Again, I will repeat: one, to reduce carbon emission; two, to build resilience against adverse climate changes; three, to ensure a carbon or environmental and sustainable economic development.
So has Liberia been successful in the 3 areas I just mentioned?
Oh yeah, we have made significant strides. But we inject all of this into national economic planning. And we are pleased to say that our police and the Ministry of Finance, they have now understood it, and they're trying to make the environment and climate change a centerpiece of the PAP.
That was my next question.
Yes.
The challenges, because in your first explanation you gave the progress, the real progress. So what are the challenges?
The challenges is we have to do awareness. People see the environment and they cannot relate it to everyday life. National policy makers see the environment and we have to help them to relate it to economic development. People think that when you are aware of the climate, you can do economic development. That's not the case. For instance, there's a case now with the lights that are going across. For the lights to have to come, they have to trim some trees on Broad Street. And it became a major argument to do this. No, they are not mutually exclusive. You can do the same thing. This is why the environmental protection and management law of this country makes it or lays down the principle and the procedures that if you want to do something of that kind of development, what to do. In the case of the Broad Street case, I want to say they trim the trees, okay? But the rules require that if you want to do that, you must come to the EPA, or in the case it's forestry, it is a tree, you go to FDA. And so the trees have to be trimmed and all that. There are procedures. So you can say, because of the tree, we will not do development. So we have made significant progress. Our major challenge now is how to improve the awareness so that policymakers will understand that the environment, they need to sustain the environment, that it's a sustainable environment is critical to our livelihood. And to also add to that, to say that environment is the new way, is the new direction. Climate change is the new direction. The other day you saw rains in December, that's unusual. I mean, you're young, but rains in December, we don't see that. The rains were long, the rains were erratic, and this can become a problem for planning. In the case of EPA, we have done substantially well in that. If you hear weather pattern, you can read the weather. Most of our people don't know where that facility came from. It's EPA that has made that possible. If our farmers know, if you know, even if you live in your house, if you know that it's going to rain, by 10 o'clock you carry an umbrella. So that is important. That's how important the climate change and our adaptation to climate change is good. So again, our major challenge is to bring our policymakers, bring them to be aware of what the environment, the industries, the companies, bring them to understand what the environment is. If you are constructing a building, it has something to do with the groundwater. So we need to have environmental permit, but we have specialists here who will tell you what to do, their drainage, how to to construct the drainage, design the drainage, and all these things can be done. So development can be climate sensitive, environmental friendly.
So lastly, we would like to look at the UN Secretary General annual message on the BBC last year. He stressed the need for world leaders to focus their address on climate change at the UNGA this year. So what message will I bring to the UNGA?
It's the same thing, and the president has been saying that. Our livelihood today is shaped by climate change and the environment. Think about it. There's nothing you can do for the environment. If suppose you decided, our people in the village decided they want to make a farm, come say next January. But the weather pattern is shifting, right? They need that information. It's only climate change and climate change resilient activities that can stop that. It puts you in a position to know that. So if we understand that, then we know how to plan our activities. Even economic development, we know how to do. We know how many people are shifting from here because of the rain. They are shifting to big farms on that side. All of these things is what the Secretary General is talking about. And like I said, the major challenge is for our policymakers to understand that the climate change is real. It's important. Sea rise. I'm told by my specialist that the sea rise goes to, if it goes by 0.5 millimeter, it can cause a problem. By the time it goes to another 0.5, you will have the whole of Western West.
So it's something like what taking place at the Hotel Africa right now?
Yeah, it's that. It's the sea rise. The sea is rising. We need to know that information. If we know that information, then we can relate to our livelihood. And as a government, as a country, our economic planning will be guided by that. So we will build in a coastal road, then we know how the elevation will be. So this is the kind of climate change impact we are talking about, and the climate resilient project we are talking about, environmental sensitive project we are talking about. So the important thing the Secretary General is what I said before. Our policy, because our people must understand the environment is their livelihood. It's their livelihood. And like I said, people say, oh, because of the tree, you not build roads. You have to build roads. It's just that you must take into consideration the environment. And we can modify the design of the road or where it is going or how it is being constructed to take account of that. I give you an example. I think in Cape Mount, we have a village, the fishing village. They get the fish, they go in the mangrove and cut the trees to dry the fish. Through the support of our international partners, we are running a project where they do coal parks, but they don't use coal. So you don't have carbon emission. Now you don't even have to go in the forest to cut the mangrove. Because when you cut the mangrove, it balances the biodiversity. The fish that's supposed to be producing, they no longer are there. And that affects the environment and how people live. So these are the things that we are talking about. And this organization, this agency has been in the center of that. So a lot of work has been done. Challenges? Yes, there are challenges. I'm talking about weather, we are talking about resources, but we are trying to do what we have. The point is to let our people understand what climate change is, that it's real, it's not for fun, that environment is important, we have to take care of our environment. And I'm happy to see that our basic communities, we have a section here, the department called intersectorial. They are responsible for weather and they go to communities, and we are beginning to see good responses. Yeah.
Okay, so then you mentioned earlier on the mangrove way there in Cape Mount, right here in Maserado, people are cultivating the mangrove.
That's correct.
So
that's correct.
That
Police Academy.
We have
a case the other day, and we have a good team. We have a field team, and a report came that somebody is trying to do backfilling of the swamp. We made an intervention, and we talked to the person to stop it, and they will come in because you cannot play around the wetland, because this country is a signature to a lot of international protocols. We have to protect those areas.
People are even using it as dump sites.
Our dump site, we have to stop that. And our awareness to the community, when you see people dumping stuff anywhere, you got to let the EPA know. We just got a case from the field where somebody went in a community and dumped a waste. We don't know what that waste is, and all kind of things coming from the ground. So our people, I will speak, if we are coming a little earlier, you will see our people are on the field following up that information to see who did the waste and to alert the community, and EPA will take the necessary step that that particular waste is removed from where it is.
So, Prof. Tapler, before we take a leave of you, is there anything that you would like to add? Maybe we did not ask.
No, I think you did well to say thank you, and we want to tell our people the issue of the environment is a serious business.
This is how we'd like to come to the end of the program today. I am Rachel Benwick-Colley. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.
Can we save the air from global warming, climate change, sea erosion, waste pollution, and other environmental problems? Join LNTV for answers to these questions on the program Focus on the Environment with Rachel Colley.